Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. I'm sure it will be rewarded with one of the best finals that the French Debating Association has ever seen. Before we move to that exciting moment, there's an even more exciting moment now, when I would like to call upon the directeur du cabinet du président de l'Assemblée nationale, Mr. Claude Barthelone, the directeur du cabinet, the head of staff, Mr. Mathieu Quiolet, who will now make the opening address in French. The opening address will be in French, but it's not because Mr. Quiolet is not an expert in the language of Shakespeare.
Madame l'ambassadrice, Monsieur le secrétaire général de la Questure, Mesdames et Messieurs les membres du jury, Monsieur le professeur, cher Declan, Mesdames et Messieurs les candidats, Mesdames et Messieurs, vous l'avez sans doute noté, je ne suis pas le président de l'Assemblée nationale. Je le regrette, tout comme vous. Le président de l'Assemblée nationale, Claude Barthelone, qui se réjouissait à l'idée d'être parmi vous ce soir, a malheureusement été retenu à la dernière minute. Il le regrette, d'autant plus qu'il partage avec vous le goût du verbe et l'amour de l'éloquence. En son absence, il m'a confié, en ma qualité de directeur de cabinet, le soin de vous adresser ces quelques mots de bienvenue. Voilà plus de 10 ans que chaque année, la finale du tournoi d'éloquence de l'enseignement supérieur, organisé par la désormais célèbre French Debating Association, a lieu ici, à l'hôtel de l'ENSAE. Si vous avez choisi de vous réunir ici, cela ne tient nullement au hasard. Après tout, l'Assemblée nationale est née de l'éloquence. L'éloquence d'une poignée d'hommes nouvellement élus qui, le 17 juin 1789, à Versailles, décidèrent de mettre fin à un régime fondé sur l'inégalité et la soumission en se proclamant Assemblée nationale. Depuis lors, l'Assemblée vit du verbe et de l'éloquence. Pouvoir faire entendre sa voix, porter un discours, exprimer ses convictions, ses idées, telle est la condition première de toute démocratie. Seulement voilà, vous le savez mieux que quiconque, savoir s'exprimer en public n'est pas un don inné. L'éloquence est un art au sens que lui donnaient les anciens, une technique avec ses règles, ses ruses et ses outils. Les Romains, à la suite des Grecs, en identifiaient 5. Vous aurez à les mettre en œuvre ce soir, devant nous, autour de la motion qui vous est proposée. Invention, disposition, élocution, mémoire, et enfin la dernière, que Démosthène considérait comme la plus importante, l'actio, c'est-à-dire la manière dont l'orateur prononce son discours, ses gestes, ses expressions, le timbre de sa voix, le rythme de sa parole. On l'aura compris, l'art oratoire ne peut se dissocier de l'orateur. Chaque fois que l'on prononce un discours, on y met toujours un peu de soi. Ce soir, vous défendrez ou vous combattrez une motion dans un exercice imposé, un exercice de style. Mais le talent que vous avez acquis à travers ce tournoi vous servira plus tard à défendre ce en quoi vous croyez, à persuader les autres des idées qui vous paraissent justes, à combattre celles qui vous semblent dangereuses, à argumenter aussi et toujours pour donner de la force à votre pensée. On parle souvent de la rhétorique comme d'un art formel. Ici, à l'Assemblée nationale, nous savons que rien n'est moins vrai. Chaque discours est au service d'une cause. Chaque discours est, au sens littéral, une prise de position et, disons-le clairement, une prise de risque, et cela, je le mesure d'autant plus aujourd'hui, moi qui ne m'exprime jamais en public. Mais pratiquer l'art oratoire, c'est surtout se donner les moyens d'exercer pleinement une citoyenneté démocratique. C'est assumer une part de responsabilité dans l'espace public, car, comme le disait Brice Parrain, les mots sont des pistolets chargés. S'adressant au jeune Alcibiade, qui deviendra par la suite l'un des hommes politiques les plus brillants d'Athènes, Socrate le mit en garde. Savoir parler et persuader ne suffit pas, encore faut-il savoir de quoi on veut persuader son auditoire. C'est une leçon qu'en l'espèce, l'élève oublia bien vite, lui qui devint l'artisan du retour de la guerre. Certains mots fondent les assemblées, les villes et les nations, d'autres les défont. L'art oratoire confère un grand pouvoir à celui qui sait l'exercer. Heureusement, depuis Spider-Man, nous le savons, with great powers come great responsibility. Je le dis pour chacun d'entre vous aujourd'hui. Merci. L'organisation de ce tournoi répond à de nombreux objectifs, au premier rang desquels la promotion et la maîtrise de la langue de William Shakespeare, d'Oscar Wilde, de James Joyce, de William Yeats et de Declan McCavanagh. Vous noterez, Madame l'ambassadrice, notre penchant ce soir pour les auteurs irlandais. Mais ce tournoi est aussi un lieu de rencontre et de partage, d'amitié et d'émulation qu'on ne quitte jamais vraiment. Je remarque d'ailleurs que de nombreux anciens lauréats ont répondu présents à notre invitation. Pour toutes ces raisons, c'est un grand plaisir et un grand honneur de vous accueillir ici au nom du président de l'Assemblée nationale. Mr. Chairman, cher Declan, la séance est ouverte. Vous avez la parole.
Thank you very much, Monsieur le Directeur. This is an extraordinary year, ladies and gentlemen. The French Debating Association is celebrating its 24th annual tournament and its 23rd year running here at the French National Assembly. And once again, we're doing it in style. For the 10th year in succession, indeed, we are here in this most extraordinarily magnificent cradle of democracy, the Hôtel de l'ENSAE. Our presence this evening is due to the current resident of this sumptuous building, to a man who responded immediately and positively to our request for a venue for our final. A man who is representative of the openness and the transparency of this forum for all citizens, that is the French National Assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the FDA and all of you here present this evening, I would like to thank, in the warmest of fashions, the President of the French National Assembly, Mr. Claude Barthelone, for granting us the opportunity to avail of this magnificent arena for our feast of rhetoric. The great Samuel Beckett, another Irish author whom we celebrated with the motion for our final last year in 2016, once said that, and I quote, "Every word is like an unnecessary stain on silence and nothingness." But were he alive today, he would simply have advised, please turn your mobile phones off. However, we certainly neither welcome nor expect silence from the 10 orators gathered on either side of me who will do rhetorical battle this evening. The two teams present this evening have each won through 3, indeed 4, qualifying rounds to get to this final, and so the winner will be the true FDA champion of 2017. They represent the face of the FDA in 2017. For on the one hand, we have a school which won our first tournament back in 1994, and on the other hand, a school participating in its first ever final. We are absolutely delighted to welcome our government side this evening, fresh from their semi-final victory over UPMC, Université de Pierre et Marie Curie, in a wonderful debate. Please welcome the proposition team and 4 times former winners of our coveted trophy from ENSAE. I would ask each member to stand up as I call out their names. So the Prime Minister, Mr. Lukas Kemkes. Second Speaker, Mr. Marc Ganet. Third Speaker, Ms. Edith Stojanovic. Fourth Speaker, Mr. Manuel Tono. And final Speaker, Government Whip, Mr. Louis Adjimian. In our other wonderful semi-final, Paris 1, Panthéon-Sorbonne, second-time semi-finalists, and very, very well represented this evening, apparently, met with first-time semi-finalists, and thus, also, as I said before, first-time finalists, ILERI. So both of those two teams represent the wide range of the participation in the FDA. Ultimately, ILERI prevailed, and they are tonight's opposition. Leader of the opposition, and as we say in FDA, Shadow Prime Minister, Mr. Paul Pelletier. Second opposition speaker, Ms. Jade Pak. Third on the opposition side, Mr. Cédric Iafil. Fourth speaker in the opposition, Ms. Susana Rivera. And the final opposition speaker and opposition whip, and therefore final official speaker of this debate, will be Marie-Charlotte Beauté. Both our semi-finals were held on the premises of our neighbours this evening, the French Ministry for Foreign Affairs, the Quai d'Orsay. And we would like to say a very special word of thanks to the Foreign Affairs Minister, Mr. Jean-Marc Ayrault, and to all his staff who made those two occasions so memorable. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let us move to the people who will have the particularly difficult decision of choosing a winning team and the best speaker this evening, the very distinguished members of the jury. We've had impressive juries in the past, it's true. But this time we have the most impressivist ever to grace an FDA final. Each of them comes from a different field of competence, and their domains range from politics to diplomacy, from administration to the arts, the media, or indeed academia. But each is distinguished by his and her excellence in that field. First of all, the president of the jury, and I would ask each member of the jury, obviously, to stand up as well when I call their names. I'm sure I'm not giving away any secrets if I tell you that her involvement with the FDA goes back to the last century. At that time, when we first met, she was, of course, a teenager and was on her first long period in Paris and provided important intelligence to the then Irish ambassador to persuade him to support our association and indeed appear on our jury. After her own appearance on the jury last year at the final, I asked her if we could invite her back, and she answered me that very evening that she would be insulted if she were not re-invited. So, she is an old friend of mine and also of the FDA, and we are deeply indebted to the Irish ambassador here in France, Her Excellency Geraldine Nason-Byrne. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a real honor to introduce our next jury member. He is a man whom I have had the luck and the privilege of meeting in a variety of situations and capacities. He is a man of many talents and of far-reaching intellectual abilities. He is a staccavanist with a sense of humor, a chief of staff with the notion of humanity, and above all, for me, a student who has become a friend. The directeur du cabinet du président de l'Assemblée nationale, we've heard from Mr. Mathieu Quiolet. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here in the Galerie des Fêtes of the Hôtel de l'Assay, but you are certainly aware that just behind me stand the doors which open directly onto the Palais Bourbon and to the chamber of the Palais Bourbon, where decisions are taken daily and which have a direct effect on how this country is governed. The well-oiled machine which allows this process to take place has an extremely long and glorious history. And we are particularly pleased to welcome this evening a person who is at the very heart of the functioning of the mechanism and the structure of this particular institution. Much of his work goes on behind closed doors, but tonight he has graciously accepted to come out into the open and to be a member of our jury. However, if he, the captain of the ship, is with us this evening, one must wonder who is actually steering the ship. But ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary General of the Questure of the French National Assembly, an old friend and also a friend of the French Debating Association, Mr. Christophe Pallez. Indeed, the National Assembly is very well represented in our jury this evening because the next member of this illustrious panel is a person who has followed and indeed supported the French Debating Association since our very beginning. She is the very epitome of a dedicated and loyal parliamentary civil servant, but also of a multifaceted and ingenious innovator. She never fails the FDA in her support and in her energy. The Director of the Foreign Affairs Department of the French National Assembly, Madame Françoise Meffre. Our next guest and jury member holds a very special place and a very warm place in my heart. He is a graduate of one of the world's finest universities, if not the finest university, Trinity College Dublin. That indeed is where I met him. At that period, he was considered to be one of the most stylish men on campus. And as you will see, that is no longer the case. Lol. He has been editor-in-chief of the Observer magazine of the OECD since the last century and will probably last longer than the magazine itself. Double lol. My old pal, great friend, and great friend of the FDA, Mr. Rory Clark. Please be indulgent with our next jury member. It's her first time at the FDA and for one of our finals, and I'm sure she's already asking herself why she accepted this invitation in the first place. But she most graciously did, and we're delighted to welcome her. She is the Paris correspondent for the extremely influential NPA, National Public Radio Media Organization in the United States. She began broadcasting from Paris in 2004 and is now indeed a household name in the United States and elsewhere. We feel very privileged that she is with us this evening. Madam Eleanor Beardsley. In these days of globalization, the FDA has had to adapt itself to new requirements and demands, and thus we have opened up branches dealing with every imaginable aspect of debating. But I would like to take this opportunity to pay a very special thanks to two extremely important people, the real VIPs of this evening's debate, the two people without whom none of us would be present here this evening, our co-secretaries general. As the FDA expands, and as our needs increase, it is more and more the case that we call upon exceptional people to deal with exceptional circumstances. Ladies and gentlemen, most of you present here this evening have very little idea of the labor, the stress, the toil that goes into making an event like this happen. The students, the judges, the teams, and the coaches here this evening have an inkling of the work that goes on behind the scenes, which allows our tournament to be what it is. And I have no doubt whatsoever that you will join me in giving a special round of applause to our Secretaries General for the hours, the days, the months, and indeed now the years that they have devoted to this tournament and its success. And I would like to take this opportunity of presenting them with a medal, a very special medal of the National Assembly. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Albertine Aquenin, and behind me, Francesco Donini Ferretti.
Alain.
But, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of Secretaries General, I would like to now present the final member of the jury. The final member of the jury has a very, very special position. He was, and since we live in France, still is, the Secretary General of the FDA. He held this position for 2 years running, in 2014, 2015, and he added his own inimitable touch to make the FDA what it is today. He was also, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying, one of the greatest debaters and finalists never to actually win the FDA trophy. We are delighted, and it's a real pleasure for me to welcome him back tonight to occupy a position he most thoroughly deserves as a member of our jury for this evening's final. Mr. Al-Assad. It is indeed fitting that this Feast of Eloquence should take place in France's cradle of oratory, the National Assembly. But that is even more the case given that the spectacle of rhetoric that you're about to witness is based on the rules and the procedures of the Assembly's sister house in the United Kingdom, the House of Commons. So, for those of you unfamiliar with our format, and I don't think there are very many, but nonetheless, let me just briefly run down through the main features of what has now become known in Brownian terms as the Paris 5 style of debating. 5 speakers from the government, 5 speakers from the opposition speak consecutively for a total of 6 minutes. Speakers may be interrupted in 2 ways. One, by points of information, a question which is made to a speaker by a member of the opposing team. The speaker may or may not accept the point, but is obliged to accept at least 1 and expected to accept 2 during his or her speech. Speakers must make it clear that they are rejecting points of information, either by saying so or by making a very clear gesture to the person asking the points of information. Second possible interruption is a point of order. Point of order is made to the chairman, who must accept, that is to me, and it concerns the running or the procedure of the debate. Unlike points of information, points of order are not included in the timing of the debate. So for a point of information, the speakers have to take that into account in their speeches. For a point of order, the clock is stopped. You, ladies and gentlemen, are also part of the spectacle. This is a spectator sport. And so if you are in agreement with what a speaker has said and you feel strongly about what a speaker has said, then you show your approbation in a traditional fashion, which I think most of you probably are aware of. That is to say, hear, hear. So after 3, can we practice? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I love it. Very nice. And if you disagree strongly with what a speaker says, then the traditional term is to use the word shame, but with a very elongated central vowel. So that comes out something like 1, 2, 3. Shame. Oh, yes, very nice. You're in very good voice this evening. This leads me to the 2 most important people in this evening's debate. You've already heard about Francesco, but not only is he the co-secretary gen, he is also the co-timekeeper this evening, or bell person, as we like to say in the FDA. He is indeed a lucky man because he finds himself sharing that position with the most experienced bell girl that the FDA has ever had. Her day job is social media officer of the FDA, but in reality, her real passion is for the bell. The amazing Shanika de Silva. The timing is pretty simple. From the moment that the speakers finish their introduction, ladies and gentlemen, etc., the timing begins. After 1 minute, the bell will ring. That means that speakers can now be interrupted by points of information from either of the 2 teams. They can be interrupted until the end of the 5th minute, when we'll hear a similar sound. And that second bell means 2 things. 1, speakers have 1 minute to conclude, and as I said, can no longer be interrupted by points of information. At the end of 6 minutes, should it be necessary, we will hear a slightly more elongated version. And that means the speakers should draw their remarks to a rapid conclusion. And after that, after 6:15, well, Shanika will do whatever she is best at doing, and I think the speakers will understand very quickly what she means. Right. The jury, at the end of the 10 speakers, will retire. The jury are looking for 5 criteria, all equal. Content, of course, argumentation. Presentation, the way that that is put across. The way that teams teamwork, the way that teams interact with each other, and how they deal together as a solid, coherent unit. This year, we've introduced criterion number 4, which is engagement, that is to say, how the teams deal with the arguments that have been put forward by the opposing team. And the 5th criterion is, of course, the very famous je ne sais quoi, the star quality, the mojo, whatever you want to call it, that little thing that you can't quite put your finger on, but you know that they've got it. So there are the 5 criteria: content, presentation, teamwork, engagement, and overall impression, if you so like, members of the jury. I would like to stress that the level of English is not one of the criteria, but I'm pretty sure, having seen both teams already perform in the tournament, you won't have to worry about the level of English because it is of an exceptional level. So, after that, then the motion will be thrown up into the House, and you, ladies and gentlemen of the House, will have the opportunity to intervene as well. Right, all this talk is very well, but as the great Chinese philosopher Guillaume Cai once said, Ibe Peijiu, translated roughly as words are also actions, and actions are a kind of words. You have come for action, ladies and gentlemen, and so we will move to that action. We will open the arena to our oratorical gladiators this evening. Let us move to the motion at hand. This House believes that democracy is demagoguery, and it is with great pleasure that I call upon the first speaker to propose the motion from ENSAE.